Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, a little bit of laughter, and everything you need to start fresh. Because as we know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. We're here today with a very, very important topic that's actually not talked about a lot, I feel like, with one of our amazing experts, Lorraine. Lorraine, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I am a teen leadership coach, and that is a mouthful. But really, what that is I empower young teens to see themselves as the leaders that they are and debunk the myths that they need to be perfect, they need to already have the skills, or they need a title in order to be a leader.
Yeah, so we're talking today about teenagers and divorce, which again is a topic I feel like people kind of like skate over because we tend to think a lot about how are we going to tell our elementary school kids we're getting divorced, or maybe my kid's a toddler or whatever it is. And I mean, my kids were young, but teenagers are greatly affected by divorce. And so, Lorraine, you work with teenagers all the time in your leadership program. You were a teacher, you are a mom. so how can we best support our teenagers, during this divorce transition?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we as parents who are experiencing divorce is that uncertainty, is that unknown. I don't have the answers. I don't know how to answer a lot of the questions, but that uncertainty is even more important and present for our young teens. They know a lot, they experience a lot, they can see what's happening, whether they speak to us
Yeah.
or not about what is happening. And the thing that I want to encourage leaders and teens is to know that uncertainty is part of the process and to seek information from the source. So if somebody is saying something and it feels uncertain or it feels off putting for you, muster the courage. I want to say don't be afraid, but muster that
Yeah.
courage to go to the person that you need to talk to
Mhm.
and also know that they may not have a good answer for you, and understanding that divorce is uncertain, and that's part of the problem about divorce is that nobody really knows the outcome,
Yeah.
the end
Yeah.
date, and all of that makes it really really hard for us to stay in community and stay in connection. So I think that that would be my biggest piece of advice is to seek information from the source. I as a teacher, I would talk to my students about searching Google, and we would talk about a reliable source. And I would talk to my teens and the students and say, trust your gut. If it feels right,
Yeah.
check in again and see if there's another source that you can confirm. And as teens, we're doing a lot of learning about who is a reliable source. And if you're going through a divorce in your family,
Yeah.
really understanding that reliable doesn't necessarily mean truthful, but the reliable means like, who is the person that I need to get this information from?
I love that. And also remembering that like a divorce is a transition for the family,
Yeah.
right? And so like it's okay to be open and talk about what's happening, right? You as a parent, you can talk about what's happening without getting into intimate details, right? Like I
Yeah.
remember I was in 8th grade when my parents were going through the final stages of their divorce. And my parents were pretty open. Like, this is kind of what's happening with custody stuff. We're trying to figure things out. Like, you don't have to get into like your dad cheated on me and I'm forever, but
Right.
because that's a whole other topic. But you can say like, yeah, a judge might want to talk to you about what you prefer, for the living situation, or we understand that this is a really hard transition and dad's moving out or whatever. The kids, like you said, they notice, they know what's going on, and it's better to be, I think upfront and honest as much as you can for their age level.
Yeah, and they're going to come to their own decisions and their own information if we don't provide them with
Mm,
enough information. And if we're avoiding and not sharing that information because we don't know how to,
right.
then they're going to come up with their own information, and likely that is not really helpful or truthful.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the uncertainty because I think it's we don't have to have all the answers, right?
Mm,
And to say like, I know, bud, this is so hard for all of us, but like, I don't know when it's going to be over, but we're going to be fine, like, right? And and it's hard to captain that ship when you don't know what the seas are gonna be, right?
yeah,
But you have to be the captain of the ship, otherwise, it's gonna be a lot of mutiny. So
yeah.
okay, so another topic that's really important to talk about, Lorraine, and this is kind of flipping the perspective a little bit here. But as a teacher, we don't give enough credit to kind of that transitional time of divorce happening when it comes to our children's lives, right? And it's funny because we're just starting to talk about it in terms of the workplace, right? People going in the workplace are going through a divorce. What support can we give them? And we tend to think of divorce, in our children's lives as like, well, okay, the parents are getting divorced. How does it affect them? And it really affects them. So I would love your perspective on this as a teacher and leader.
Yeah, and I'm going to give some really practical advice. I'm not going to tell you as a teacher how to handle the emotional load of that student, but what you can do as a teacher, and what took me a really long time to understand, is that these teens could potentially be living between two homes. And
Mm-hmm.
when I came to this realization, I would think to myself, when I go away for a weekend, how many things do I forget to bring with me? And when I leave to come home, how often do I leave something behind? And
Yeah.
so when I realized the impact of moving every 3 or 4 days, or every weekend, or every other week,
Yep.
I realized how challenging that must be for a teenager. If I myself was struggling, how else could that
Yeah.
be for
Yeah.
a teenager? And so one of the things that I did as a teacher eventually, when I'm telling you, like, it took me a long time to realize this impact, was I offered them 2 books, or I offered them grace if they forgot their homework. And I
Yeah.
didn't automatically assume it was teenage dismissal or teenage,
Yeah.
angst, fighting back and bringing their work to school, or forgetting their book.
Yep.
And I will tell you, the first student that I did this for said to me, "Nobody has ever seen me this
Yeah.
way."
Yeah.
And it was like, I will never not see that
Yeah,
again.
yeah, you're gonna make me cry because I understand this. This was my childhood,
Yeah.
and it was so hard. And all the other thing too, because I could talk about this forever. Is we tend to think of custody as numbers, right? Oh, they have a 5 and 2. They have a
Yeah.
every other weekend, right? They have whatever it is. Those are children's lives,
Yeah.
right? And it's very, very destabilizing to go from one home, which whatever the relationship of your parents was, but you're literally going back and forth, right? Even if it's every other weekend,
Right.
which means your social life is being upended, which means maybe you can't do the school play because you're at somebody else's house, another weekend. You're not going to get to go out with your friends. Your entire life shifts because your parents are going through a divorce. And it's a family transition, and we need to give teenagers grace for that, right? And it's it's heartbreaking to think, it is really kind of an accessibility issue, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can we support them as they're going back and forth? And this idea that like both houses are equal because they're not. They
No
never
way.
are, right? So I mean, I often think, and I was a teacher too, as you guys know, that and this was true for me too. One house might have a big kitchen table that they can do their poster science board on. The other house may not. Right? And so to say to a kid, "Well, why couldn't," when teachers used to say this to us, "Why couldn't you? Why couldn't you? Why couldn't you?" I used to have a music teacher that said, "Well, why couldn't you come to the spring concert?" Well, I was at my dad's house and I didn't have a ride, right? Whatever it is. Like, and again, the kids are not in control, and it's not fair. It's just not fair. Right? So I'm so grateful, Lorraine, that you're talking about this and that you are there to support families during this. So let's talk about what you do with teens, because what you do is really magical. So talk about your leadership program and all the coaching that you do.
Yeah. So work with kids who are of any level of leadership. And that to me is super important because there are kids who have been deemed not leaders because of some behavior issue or some executive functioning skill that's lacking.
Yeah.
And leadership is a skill just like executive functioning is. So that means you can get better at leadership. And so I work in groups of students because when it's me and one other student, it's just our two brains. So I love bringing other kids into the conversation and group coaching because they're learning from each other. And so I have a virtual program that is called the Young Teen Leadership Cohort. And we fill groups of up to 15, and we work for 8 weeks, 4 months to build community and build camaraderie and build basic level leadership skills. And once they've built those skills, then I encourage them to join me again and work with similar kids who've gone through that first program and start to build that muscle of leading another person. And then, so level one is learning to lead yourself. Level two is learning to lead
Mm,
somebody else. And then level three is taking what you've learned in the first two levels and bringing it back into your community.
I love it.
And that to me is the most powerful thing that
Yeah.
I do, is because I can't reach everybody, but my teens can take what they've learned and share it with someone else, and then it just spreads.
I love it. I love it. Um, so Lorraine, and also obviously all of Lorraine's information will be in the show notes, and you can find her at Fresh Start Registry, of course. But Lorraine, one more question before you go. If somebody's listening to this and they are a parent or a leader going through a divorce, what would be some words of encouragement that you could leave them with?
I would say have grace for everyone, find connection with someone, and go to the source. Find the information from the person that is most important in that piece of information.
I love that. I love that. Well, Lorraine, we appreciate you so much. And you can find Lorraine at Fresh Starts Registry in the Expert Guide. Highly recommend her leadership program. And she has so many free resources and information out there also. So please go give her a follow. Lorraine, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.